In this section of our Concept 2 notes, we're going to be talking about the different properties of water. I have 5 different ones listed here, and we're going to talk about each of them individually, but briefly we have cohesion, adhesion, high specific heat, less dense as a solid, and water is a terrific solvent. First, we're going to talk about the property of water that is called cohesion, and we need to think that co means together. So cohesion is the attraction between molecules of the same substance. So an example we can think here is water sticking to water. It likes itself, it's made of the same substance, so water sticking to water. This is the tendency of molecules of the same kind to stick together, and because of this, it causes high surface tension. And that's what you're seeing here in this spider web picture. So surface tension is how difficult it is to stretch or break the surface of a liquid or a resistant external force. So you can see these water droplets are trying really hard to stay with the water. Another example of high surface tension would be when you can see little tiny bugs that are able to stand or walk on water, and this is because of the high surface tension. The water really wants to stay next to each other, and therefore it's not letting the bug through. The next property of water we have is called adhesion. And adhesion is the type of attraction that happens between two different molecules. So examples here, we could be talking about glass, soil, plant tissue, cotton. So we can think about, water is absorbed into, paper towel because they are working through the property of adhesion. So this forms a stronger bond than cohesion. So some other examples would be things like the meniscus forming on a graduated cylinder, if you remember that from our first little measuring activity. And then we have capillary action, which is seen in plants, trees, and straws. So this is the part that allows plants to draw water up from their roots, or what allows us to get water up through a straw. The third property is that water has a high specific heat, meaning that the temperature of water does not change easily. Water has to absorb more heat energy to increase overall temperature compared to other compounds. So essentially, it's really good at staying the same temperature. This helps regulate cell temperatures in organisms. If you think about humans, we are 98.6 degrees all of the time. If you go outside and play in the snow, you are still 98.6 degrees. And if you are outside working in the summer, your temperature is still 98.6 degrees because water doesn't change. Its temperature does not fluctuate very much, which is part of what allows life to live in water. So it has a buffer of large fluctuations in temperatures, which keeps Earth's climate moderate. All right, our next property of water is one you're probably familiar with, even if you didn't realize it, and this is that water is less dense as a solid, meaning that solid water, which we know is ice, is less dense than a liquid, which means that it floats in liquid water, which we know this. You can put an ice cube in a glass of water and it's going to float to the top. Since ice floats in water, this is good for life, meaning that life can exist under frozen surfaces in lakes and in our ocean. Next, we have the idea that water is a terrific solvent. So we're going to talk about what that word solvent means using the example of lemonade. So we have 3 parts here. The solution is a uniform mixture of 2 or more substances. So this would be the actual glass of lemonade itself. The solute is what gets dissolved, and for us that would be the lemonade powder. That is what we are going to dissolve, and the solvent is what does the dissolving. So in this case it would be water. Because of this, it's water's polarity that makes it really good at dissolving things, and thus it is considered the universal solvent. It dissolves more substances than any other liquid. Next, we are talking about the idea of substances being either hydrophilic or hydrophobic, and this is caused by the fact that water is polar. So hydrophilic substances have an affinity for water, meaning that they are water loving. And they are usually dissolved easily in water. So example of things that are hydrophilic, meaning they like water, are things like salt and sugar. And we know this, you can gargle with salt water. We make, Kool-Aid, where you can easily dissolve these things in water. The next thing we have is called hydrophobic. And this is substances that do not have an affinity for water, or we can call them water fearing. That's what the phobia portion of that is. And this means that they do not dissolve easily in water. And a common example of this is oil. And that's what you can see in our picture here, is we have a glass that has water and oil, and they're clearly not mixing together.